Have you heard the tragedy of Splitgate the Wise? If you follow any number of YouTube gaming channels, you may have recently seen a new wave of sponsored videos about Splitgate, most of them informing you what the game is again and reminding you that it's so much fun to play from channels that never post it unless they're sponsored. This is not one of those videos. In fact, most of those videos are probably still pushing the marketing that Splitgate is what happens if Halo and Portal had a baby, or it's a fusion of Halo and Portal, or it's a Halo-inspired shooter. And while it's smart that they waited to do their next marketing push until some of the hype around Halo Infinite's launch has died down a little bit, honestly, it's a great tragedy that they're trying to compete with Halo at all. I have been playing Splitgate off and on, on a semi-casual basis for a very long time. I first saw it debuted or played publicly at DreamHack Dallas in 2019, and I bought the original paid, it's now a free-to-play game, but it was a paid release game when it first came out. I was super stoked for it. A game developed by only a couple people that was aiming to take on the arena FPS genre, but also had some Halo-inspired roots, really appealed to me, and I had fun with it, but my interest kind of waned as time went on, as, I had other things to do, and it didn't seem like they were really doing a whole lot with the game, and part of that comes down to the fact that it's a small team. Played it off and on for a few weeks and then probably just eventually forgot about it when I stopped gaming for a little while or something. And then they had a whole re-release thing where they got some investment to build up their studio and got the ability to release it on consoles and had this whole re-release thing they were going to do and start the official ranked season 1, which has not happened yet. They're still in beta for that. And new updates and all of this, and I was super stoked. I was glad people were finally going to give this game attention again. But honestly, the tragedy is that they're so adherent to this idea that they are Halo and Portal having a baby. Not only do I find it ridiculous to hinge your game's marketing on another game, because inherently you're always going to be then competing with that game, and when the new game comes out, your game is kind of forgotten about. But also, I don't feel like that's what Splitgate really is. Splitgate is a game that at its core, at its roots, at what it truly delivers, is an arena shooter in the style of Quake and Unreal. It has some very blatant Halo and even more other modern military shooter like Call of Duty inspired things to it. But when you look at what the game does best, which is the supposedly innovative, Portal mechanics, or the crazy skins and the movement tech and, the dynamic gameplay, most of that leans way back towards the older shooters of Quake and Unreal, and it does it really well. And I think the game was at its best when it was going all in on that, offering modes such as big head snipers and insta-gib and things like that, or insta-gib. And they keep testing the waters with that, and then they don't go all in on it. Splitgate is a lot of fun. I'm not gonna lie. I've put a lot of time into it during the first beta season 0 or whatever that has since passed away. I placed, I believe, Diamond in the ranked. I enjoy the heck out of this game, and I'm now playing both on Xbox and PC, whereas I was originally just playing on PC. The fact that they have a free-to-play competitive shooter like this on Xbox is awesome, but it needs a lot done, in my opinion, to truly keep the market, aside from the people who just keep showing up every few months when there's a marketing wave and being like, hey, remember this game? And then they abandon it again. Splitgate does a lot right. In terms of, what I enjoy most about it, it has almost amazing gunplay. The gunplay is very clearly Halo inspired, but also taking notes, as I mentioned, from Quake and Unreal. And it feels really, really good most of the time, but not all of the time. And we're going to talk about that when we get to the cons. It has super tight movement, which is very modern instead of the floaty kind of bouncing around, but it has the advanced movement tech to give you that more Quake and Unreal-like stuff. You can almost get bunny hops going, you've got the jetpack, you've got the portal physics, you've got that advanced movement tech that isn't just sprint and slide and thrust away that a lot of games are going to, but movement tech that you just get good at by playing and learning, like the classic older shooters. The game super rewards team play with team shooting and assists counting towards your multi-kills and really making the player feel good when they've just done damage on someone that another teammate was able to kill. And I think that's super important in a game that relies so heavily on team shooting like a Halo-inspired title will. I love that they reward that. The map design for the normal maps is absolutely brilliant. Some of them are gorgeous, especially after the recent graphics reworks. Like, some of them are awesome. They feel unique and dynamic, and a couple of them feel like Halo clones, and that's okay. But then you have the comp maps that are terrible. The Delta Foxtrot, whatever, those, honestly, in my opinion, are just ass and don't represent what the game is good at all. It's what the game's trying to be instead of what the game is good at, whereas the casual maps emphasize what the game is good at, and I want to see, you know, Facing Worlds clones soon and things like that. It has a great blend of that Unreal feeling and Halo together, and they have some really awesome skins and cosmetics when they're not trying to just be generic Space Marine or generic Unreal Dev Kit assets. Like, when they, like, I'm playing as basically a cowboy pickle right now, which is insane. Like, it's awesome. I love it.
Do you see the pickle?
Yeah, you look sick.
So much of this game is good, but there's so many little things that they seem either unwilling or just not prioritizing fixing that doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. Like, the controls themselves. When the gunplay is working right, it feels absolutely incredible. But when it's not, it is frustrating beyond belief. The controls are super finicky, especially if you're playing on controller, like when I've been trying to play on Xbox. Trying to juggle the portal controls is just completely useless on controller. Like, that's 4 extra buttons you're supposed to be able to press on top of the FPS, you know, already using all of the traditional FPS buttons. It's a nightmare. It's awful. Just play it as a standard shooter. But, like, there's some weird, what I believe to be, I think they are rate limiting your inputs in a way that doesn't make a whole lot of sense. And I struggled with this after the relaunch forever because I really thought they would have fixed it. And I kept blaming, like, my mouse sensitivity or netcode or whatever. Like, I couldn't figure out what it is. I think they are just rate limiting inputs. And what I mean by that is you can only do so many actions within, like, a given tick. Like, you think about old school RuneScape or something, it updates every certain tick. You can only do so many actions within that given point in time. And it's insane because it causes me to die or to not be able to do the things that otherwise this type of shooter kind of relies on you being able to do. Some examples of this. In just about every shooter I play, it is a very common tactic if you're using something, say, like a sniper rifle, to quickly, what's referred to as YY, or press the weapon swap key twice to de-scope and still have your weapon at the ready. This is used in Call of Duty, it's used in Counter-Strike, it's used in Halo. That is a very common way to quickly de-scope without messing with your thumb on your aiming stick, because pressing that in reduces your aiming accuracy because you're no longer controlling the thumbstick. This is common in most shooters. I've never played a shooter that doesn't let you do that in some capacity, and you can't do it in Splitgate. If you press weapon swap 2 times really quickly, it just swaps the weapon once. And if you sit there and try to swap weapons back and forth, you can tell half of your inputs or more are being ignored. And this persists to other actions. For example, if you try to sprint over a weapon and try to pick it up, if you're holding X, it just doesn't do it. And if you switch weapons or reload and then tap or hold X quickly enough to pick up a weapon off the ground, it also won't do it. These seem like things when I'm describing them that don't matter a whole lot, but really, I cannot stress how important this kind of control responsibility and tactile feel is important to this kind of shooter. You think about Quake and Unreal and even Halo and Counter-Strike and stuff, where you have people quickly swapping weapons all over the place and getting shots out of each one and blah, blah, blah. Those kind of advanced movement and skill play is not possible when you rate limit inputs like this. And I don't know if it's deliberate, if it's a netcode issue because the servers don't update quickly enough. I don't know what it is, but it is bad enough that it has made me stop playing this game for months on end because it should not feel this way, period. The rest of it is more just kind of like personal complaints about it. For example, I mentioned the portal controls feel useless on controller. As is, I personally, like, I've gone back and forth and I truly feel the portal mechanic as it is just feels wrong. Like, to me, it's akin to building in Fortnite, where I understand it's supposed to be the big innovation and the attracting factor for people who want something on top of traditional first-person shooters. But for me, it is multiple layers of additional awareness and controls to juggle on top of the normal first-person shooter mechanics for what is an otherwise very twitchy and, you know, super fast-paced shooter, that it just kind of breaks the experience for me. And I don't think it needs to, because I think if they altered the philosophy for it to limit the number of portals, to make only certain roles have portals, something like that, I feel would make it feel like more of an actual gameplay mechanic rather than just, hey, we came up with this as our marketing shtick and we're just gonna slap it on top and forget how it breaks the gameplay. I'm not a fan of it personally, and I think on objective modes like King of the Hill, where you have 50 portal spots behind you and there's literally no way to stop them all, it just kind of, it ruins some of the competitive feel for me. But I'm an old boomer. I understand that's a personal, restriction. But I honestly feel like they need to turn it into more of a gimmicky mechanic that is kind of limited a bit more, kind of like a grapple hook or something, where you only have it for certain cooldowns or certain times per life or certain roles, one per team, something like that. And to go all in on the Quake or Unreal-like kind of goofiness there, because that is what the game is best at. And I don't feel like they understand that, or at least they don't want to emphasize that enough. And especially given that it seems to be the most successful release of a more classic style arena shooter that has come out in the past, I'd argue 10 years. I think they need to leverage that more and get audiences used to it. A couple of little notes before I get to another big one. I think it's kind of ridiculous that they restrict playlists that you get access to based on level. For example, I just started playing on Xbox recently just to see how it plays on console, and I literally couldn't play the Valentine's event before it ended because I wasn't high enough level. And then there's like weekly challenges for Team SWAT, and I needed to get to that level. I see no benefit to this and only downside. And I think they're trying to do it as a form of kind of player balancing to keep, low skilled players out of the thing. But levels don't determine your skill because you just gain experience and level up as you play. And I find that stuff really dumb. And I guess I would prefer that to some super over aggressive, creepy SBMM that we have to talk about in a future video, but I'm not a fan of it. It makes it feel kind of weird. And I'm super bummed that there's no cross progression, especially when I'm spending money on this game. There should be cross progression. It's not that hard. As a dumb note, I don't feel like it runs at 120 Hz on the Xbox Series X. I play a lot of my shooters on Xbox on 1440p 120 Hz, and it just doesn't feel like it's running at that refresh rate for some reason. Maybe it's just me. I don't really know there. But then the big thing for me is the slow releases. I mentioned before that I started playing when the game originally released and cost like 20 or 40 bucks. I don't remember exactly. I bought it, and they did nothing with it. And then they re-released it with free-to-play and available on console and all this stuff. And then it felt like they did nothing with it. They changed nothing. They implemented nothing. As I understand that the game was made and released by like 2 people, so a slower team, whatever. But obviously, like in this day and age, as much as I hate it, you need to have faster development cycles in order to really keep up and compete. And then it gets worse in that, like, I feel like there are some crucial things that are game breaking in some ways that they just haven't even addressed. Like the big one for me is on Lava Well, the zombie VIP mode. There is an exploit where you can just hide in a corner the whole time that is super easy to fix, just like physics that out, block out ability to camp there, and they still haven't done it. And it makes that mode entirely unplayable for me because there is no point in playing at that point because you can't win once an enemy team gets in that corner and just stops you, racks up enough kills. Like, there's no point in playing. I share all of these thoughts out of a love for the game. I am in love with Splitgate. What I really want most from it is for it to really go all in on the things it's good at. And I really am concerned that the things that it does best and that makes it such a great game are not the things that they actually want to market or want to sell it as or focus on. And I think that's evident in how the maps are designed for competitive play. I think that's evident in their constant marketing push about being Halo and Portal together. I really think it's a tragedy because they have built what is an amazing modernization of the arena shooter format, which has struggled to survive in the modern day. See Quake Champions, Unreal Tournament getting dropped because development was so slow and no one really took an interest in it. Lawbreakers, like the true arena shooter format has basically died in the modern era. And Diabolical didn't do very well. Dirty Bomb basically got sold off and shut down. It has struggled to survive as a genre, and Splitgate showed up and built what could be the perfect blend of modern like twitchy shooters and arena shooters. And I don't know that they're willing or capable of maintaining it in a way that would otherwise, it's basically a runaway success should they be able to keep up with it. So this is the tragedy of Splitgate the Wise and why I love it so freaking much. I just want it to reach its potential. And maybe it will in time, but we live in a time where if a game dies on Twitch and then people stop playing it because they want the viewers and blah, 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 then games end up just dying outright. And that's terrifying. But they have introduced a map editor on PC, so it's gotten forged before Halo did, which is great. But given it seems most of the player base is on console, I don't know how important that is, but I would be super stoked if if it got it. Basically, look at Halo 3 and how it had the file forums and the community spotlight stuff. Do that, get people super invested in your community maps and really like doing crazy custom modes. Go in on all that and allow for custom server hosting and a server browser, and you have the perfect game, IMO. That's it for me. I try to focus on the nostalgia and the positivity, and honestly, that is what this video is. I had a lot of critique and criticism, but that comes from this basically being a love letter, that Splitgate has so much potential and lives up to my dreams of what the FPS genre could look like for certain titles in the future, with every other game going towards the Siege and Counter-Strike, like tactical esporty mode. For Splitgate to be so close and still try to get a piece of that esport money instead of doing what they're great at is just a tragedy to me, and I really just want to see it blow up and be the best game it can be. It's an awesome game, it's free to play, it doesn't cost you anything, I highly recommend you check it out. It's on console and PC. Just be prepared to fight the controls a little bit. Hope you enjoyed this video. Let me know your thoughts on Splitgate in the comment section down below. And remember, be kind, rewind.